Your fence is an important part of your home, even though you may not think of it that way, because should it ignite and should your fence be connected to your house, then the fire can burn directly to your house and ignite your house, typically by igniting the siding or getting into the under eave area and entering your attic space that way. So we're going to be talking to you about how your fence is vulnerable and some of the things you can do to reduce the vulnerability of your fence. One thing that you'll notice in the right-hand picture is that debris can accumulate at the base of your fence. And so one job is to make sure that you remove that debris regularly, because that debris at the base of your fence helps the fence ignite by embers that ignite that debris. It can then move up and burn the fence itself. From an ember exposure perspective, that ledge that you see, that horizontal member that the vertical planks are attached to, that will collect embers, and you'll have ember ignitions right there. So these are places to be aware of, and we'll talk about some strategies in the next few slides. So based on some experiments that were conducted at the IDHS research facility in South Carolina, we know that these ledges are vulnerable to ignition. As you can see that in the left-hand picture, where embers accumulated on the horizontal boards that the vertical planks were attached to, particularly at the posts. Embers accumulate there, ignite the fence, and that fence can continue to burn, and it'll burn laterally, both away from the home and to the home. We also found in that study that debris at the base of the fence was the easiest way for the fire to move to the building. So that's the reason for getting rid of and maintaining, on a regular basis, remove debris from the base of the fence, because of how it improves the ability of the fire to move to the building. You also notice two differences in fencing on the left and the right-hand side. So on the left-hand side picture, the privacy fence, the planks are all on one side of that horizontal board. On the right-hand picture, the planks alternate. And so that's why it's called a good neighbor fence, because you take care of one side and your neighbor takes care of the other side. The privacy fence is far more vulnerable to ember ignition than the good neighbor fence. So the good neighbor fence is a better option. It's more porous, air can move through it more readily, and embers don't have as much, it's harder for them to accumulate in any one spot. So if you have the choice of fencing, a good neighbor fence or a lattice fence is better from an ember accumulation, ember ignition perspective.
That's really funny. I think fences make great neighbors, and that's really helpful to know that the good neighbor fence makes the great neighbor.
That's right.
But nonetheless, it's really about trying to figure out how to manage, the risk and do it in a way that's going to still achieve that privacy you want and the function you need. So I think what's going to be fun in this little short segment here is just to identify what those couple of issues are that you can do that really facilitates still having the fence, but making sure that it doesn't bring fire to your house.
There you go. We saw this picture before in the deck video. In this particular case, I think the better option would be to move this fence downslope to on the other side of this tree that you can see on the edge, the right-hand edge of the picture. The fence in this location, easily ignited, can threaten the deck, can threaten your propane tank. If you move it downslope, then it can actually help protect your home by deflecting the fire that might be burning up, the small grass fire. You just want it to be on the edge of the picture, almost off the slide in terms of positioning. If it were a non-combustible fence, it would even be a better option. Metal fence would be a good option because of what it can do to deflect the flame of fire burning up slope. But the current location, as shown here, is just a bad spot for this particular fence.
And that's really because it's easy to ignite that fence, and then that fence would, in this case, there would be enough flame coming off that fence to ignite the deck even if the fence doesn't connect to the house, it's just so close to one of the attachments on the house that that kind of creates the domino effect. If the fence goes and it has combustibles next to it, then that leads to the deck, which then brings it to the house.
Right. And it can also provide a pretty long flame exposure, radiant heat exposure to that propane tank, and that propane tank could realistically explode or so-called bloody in this kind of situation, just because of the amount of fire that can come off of that fence in its current location. So the best options are non-combustible fencing. So at the left-hand picture, it's a lattice fence. That's actually a metal fence. It's a really good choice. Fire can't burn to the home, even though it's connected with this fence, because it's a non-combustible option. In cases where you have a wooden fence, where it connects to the house, you want to make sure it's a non-combustible component. So we see on the right-hand picture, it's a gate, that's a metal gate. This is a good option for this particular location. So you can just replace a 5-foot section or a section, that can be 5 or 8 feet long with this non-combustible alternative.
If you haven't done those actions, but you're kind of in the need to evacuate stage, what about just leaving the gate open such that the fence maybe doesn't connect, and maybe tying it back so that if it does ignite, at least you've created some separation in a temporary situation?
That is a great idea. So just to summarize regarding things about your house, just remember that your near home non-combustible zone that we've talked about during these video series also applies to any fence that connects to your house. So replace this combustible wooden fence where it connects to your home with a non-combustible alternative. A metal gate, for example, is a good option. And as Jana just mentioned, if you still have a combustible fence that connects to your home and it's a gate, open it as you evacuate and tie it off so that it cannot close. Remember to remove vegetative debris from the base of your fence on a regular basis. Debris at the base of your fence is easily ignited by embers and facilitates ignition of the fence itself. And the fire can burn to your home in the vegetative debris that might accumulate at the base of your fence. So you want to treat that just like you treat debris in your gutter and debris on your roof. Remove it from all of these places.
I think just to remember that the fence is an important part of your house. Do what you can to evaluate how it connects to the home and how you manage near to the building ignition potential. And just a couple modifications can make that be a little more resistant to flames and embers.